Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Felipe, and this is the Total Basis Podcast. And with me, as always, is Sean. Oops, not Sean. Sean's off. And this is a very special edition. We're recording on a Saturday morning as opposed to a Sunday morning, so I'm not quite used to that. But with me is my backup to my backup. No, my main backup, Austin Spiro. How you doing?
I'm all right, man. How are you?
Fantastic. Like I was saying right before we started recording, I have a pounding headache, so I don't know. It just came out of nowhere. I don't know if it has something to do with my neck. I have a neck problem, or if it's just because I had my coffee too late. I don't know, but we're gonna get weathered through it, just like these players that we're gonna talk about weathered through the season, long season. I can't. You know what, Austin? It feels like we just got this started, like not too long ago. This season. Remember, this was a year that was delayed because of the lockout. But you and I were working very hard behind the scenes, so to speak, trying to get ready, trying to get all the data, all the rankings, all the projections, just so we could see how this season would play out. And I feel like this is the result. This is what we were working forward towards, is to see who would get recognized and awarded at the end of the season. What do you think?
Yeah, it was definitely a whirlwind all season long, and it's so funny because when we're in it, we're like, oh, the season is so long, there's so much work, and then at the end, you're like, that actually went really quickly. And it's funny because I went back and looked at that big long spreadsheet that we that we did preseason. We listed all the teams and all the players that we thought would have been relevant and things of that nature. And in terms of fantasy wise, I feel like we were actually pretty accurate in terms of who would step up fantasy wise and who wasn't going to step up fantasy wise. So it showed. We both of us performed well in our respective leagues. I made the playoffs in I think every single league I was in, and and you and I made the finals in the total basis.
The podcast league, yeah. I made the final. I made the final against who else? Sean Flannery.
Oh, did you?
In the baseball life league,
baseball life league
on Fantrax, yeah. Which it is what it is, man. People can get mean bad at us and say, "Oh, they're just tooting their own horns," but you can't question the results. The points league, I did struggle, but even when I was trying to tank and I was trying to lose on purpose and get younger players and get more draft picks. I end up winning anyway, which is
as soon as you started. I remember that conversation. You're like, screw it, I'm just going to trade them away and get younger players. This year is done. And then all of a sudden, he went on a 3-4 game winning streak. And okay.
And then I traded all those draft picks away for veteran help. For I got Aaron Judge and Mike Trout in the same team just because I traded away all my draft picks and all my young players, which I don't recommend. But I honestly thought I had a puncher's chance of making the playoffs. Boy, was I wrong. But
all right, I represented well. I made it to the finals.
There you go. Yeah, you did make it to the finals. Good job on your first try in the league. Most people will make excuses and say, "Oh, well, the last owner, he messed up, and I had to rebuild and redo everything and fix all the problems."
Oh, I had to rebuild. I had terrible draft, and he messed that team up. I have no idea how I got to the finals. I'm going to be very honest.
You got to the finals, and because you did all the work and you solve all the problems that team has. So congratulations to you on that one. Maybe next year you'll get lucky. Hey, I have a powerhouse coming next year. I got Aaron Judge, Mike Trout, Jordan Alvarez. I think I'm going to bring Bo Bichette and Manny Machado next year. And I'm going to have some fun in this draft. I still have a lot of draft picks in the top 10 rounds.
Yeah.
Even though I traded a lot of them away, but I look forward to it. I look forward to next year. And as soon as we get through these awards and the Hall of Fame, we could start talking about, I don't know, maybe we could start recapping our projections and see what went right, what went wrong, or just start looking towards next year. 2023 is just around the corner. Literally, we're weeks away from the new year. And that means more work for us to do in the winter in preparation for the 2023 Major League Baseball season. And on top of that, we might be heading to Arizona in March.
Yep. In March for the World Baseball Classic. That'll be really fun. They only have group tickets. I keep looking for single tickets because I can only go for like 1 or 2 days. Yeah. But I'm excited to see that. That's been on my bucket list. And while we prepare for the 2023 season and we're trying to get into the World Baseball Classic, we're also trying to figure out a greatest of all time series. We just started that too. So we got a lot of things going on here in the off season. Just because it's the off season doesn't mean that we're taking a break.
Yeah, we don't take breaks here, man. We don't take breaks. It's people say, "Oh, okay, well, the season's over. Time to take a break. I don't need to do any more shows. I don't need to do any more episodes. I don't need to do any more baseball. It's football season." No, in this in the Total Basis podcast, there's always something to talk about baseball related. So, if you love baseball, you're in the right group. Baseball Life, go check us out. And also, what the hell? Oh, that's weird. My phone is acting all messed up. Huh.
Nobody's
Okay.
commented.
Well, that was weird. All of a sudden, oh, you know what? It's because it's touching the cable. Anyway, I got distracted. Let's get started, man. We got some awards to hand out. We got some defensive player awards, and I made a mistake before the show started that Nolan Arenado was overrated or whatever. It turns out he's not, and I'm gonna share the spreadsheet just in a moment here. It's one of those shows. It's a spreadsheet show. I know people love my spreadsheets. Last week, Melvin admitted as much, so yeah, at least I feel like one person enjoys them and appreciates them. And there it is in all its glory. Can you see what I see there, Austin?
I can see it. Yep. Just as you mentioned, Melvin joins in and he has to comment that it's always baseball season in Baseball Cosmos. It is always baseball season, Baseball Cosmos. He's got his own Facebook page his own page, and he's got his own podcast out there. So, cool guy to talk to.
Yeah. He told me he's working on creating more content for said podcast. As of right now, that's only what he called the beta. Well, I call it a simp episode. No, I'm joking. But yeah, he says he's gonna do more as the Caribbean League rolls on and the World Baseball Classic rolls around. But there it is in all its glory. The 2022 defensive metrics fielders, minimum 750 innings. I think Fangraphs you got to do at least 1,000, but I dropped it down to 750. And there it is, Nolan Arenado. So you just mentioned that Nolan Arenado won the Platinum Award or something like that in real life.
Platinum Glove, yep. Him and Jose Trevino.
And Jose Trevino. Well, Trevino is ranked 11th on this list.
Right.
Or not even, he's tied for 10. So top 10 fielder. I mean, for catchers, it's pretty hard to get up there because they're pretty stationary. But I think these metrics have done a better job of trying to gauge the importance of the catching position. Right. I'm not going to get through all the nuances that are involved in defensive run save, which is the main, the main metric that actually measures catchers. Unfortunately, things like UZR and outs above average, which is new to my rankings, is the outs above average because it's now available on Fangraphs. So I decided to adopt it and make a cumulative score out of it. But yeah, it is hard for catchers to in my system to get any top tier awards because it's only defensive run save and that's it, unfortunately. Right. But
well, and then the other thing with this is the defensive metrics are still very unreliable in my opinion. When you look at defensive metrics across, usually if you look at Baseball Savant and you look at Fangraphs and you look at Baseball Reference, usually whatever you're looking at, there's generally just a slight difference in terms of the metric and in terms of the number, but the rankings usually stay the same. When it's fielders, you don't know who's going to be up there. Nolan Arenado could be way up in terms of Fangraphs, but then you go to Baseball Savant and he's somewhere down towards middle of the pack, or he's not top 10 anymore. Just for example, that's not necessarily true, but it's still widely unreliable. There's different things that different websites take into consideration and put better importance on. So we're still Sabermetrics is still trying to figure out how to quantify defense.
Yeah, and it's for the simple fact that there's a sample size issue. We talked about it numerous times over the span of this show. Is that even Fangraphs, they suggest, try not to take it at too much face value because one season might not be enough. Because you really think about it, especially with strikeouts being so high, the chances for fielders to make plays and to accumulate some of these metrics and these productive stats on defense is very minimal if you really think about it. And the expectation is that routine plays should be almost automatic. And if you can't make those plays, you get penalized heavily for not making those plays. Whereas those highlight reel plays that you see on ESPN and stuff, those are graded the opposite. You get more of a score for those impossible plays. But unfortunately, what happens is that those plays are so far and few between But because they're so far and few between, people's minds get warped, and they see on the highlights all the time. They're like, oh well, hey, this guy makes that play. He puts his body on the line. He dives into the third base bleachers or the third base stands and makes a diving out pop up fly over there, and so that means he's good. And then when the metrics show up, like, well, that was only one play. I mean,
Yeah.
there's still other plays. And even then, those other plays, it's just not enough. So sometimes even Fangraphs, they suggest go 2 or 3 seasons and get a large sample size. But for the purposes of this exercise, we're only going to look back at 2022 and 2022 only. And you're right. Each defensive run save, that's a website. That's a different website's intellectual property. UZR is another website's intellectual property, and outs above average is Baseball Savant / Statcast's intellectual property. And they all measure things differently. The DRS and UZR, from what I remember, they use cameras. I think we talked about that already. They use cameras and
so it's funny. They're using essentially a fancy eye test to.
It's a fancy eye test, and Sean, and but it's there's also measurements involved, and Sean used to do that for the Montgomery Biscuits, and where he would monitor the cameras that would keep track of player movement, and there's a certain aspect that is utilized on these cameras, and it's also comparable to what other fielders have done in the past. So if you can't even get what 99% of fielders can get to in the outfield, that's a mark against you. And as an outfielder, like, oh well, 99 according to the cameras and the way that the algorithms are measured in the cameras, this outfielder sucks, and that's why he's not on this list. Same thing with arm. Like we're gonna get to it in just a bit, but the arm metrics that they use for DRS and UZR, they're a little bit different too. Not different, but I don't want to use the word unreliable, but you have to account for the fact that some base runners are, after they test certain arms, they start to hesitate, right?
Right.
So like Mike Trout's a good example. For many years, people thought he had an awful arm, but now it's getting to the point like maybe it's not that his arm is bad. It's just that nobody runs on his arm, that he doesn't get any outfield assists. He doesn't get any.
Well, I watched enough of Mike Trout to know that at the beginning, and I was a big proponent of Mike Trout specifically of he shouldn't have been a center fielder. He should have been a left fielder.
Yeah.
But
ditto.
Mike Trout being Mike Trout, he got a way better arm. He worked on his arm just like he worked on his offense. So his arm is good now, but in the beginning, he did not have a center fielder's arm. He had a left fielder's arm.
Yeah, and that was always the thing with me too. Like, hey, maybe the team would be better if he were in left field, and a guy like Peter Bourjos could start in center field. Boy, was I wrong. That was the wrong thing to do. Just keep him in center field, and because he's in center field, obviously all of his metrics look amazing. Because and that's probably the reason why his WAR metric is so high. But it's not like he's a deficiency in center field. But
he's not a bad fielding center fielder. It's just his fielding stats are heightened because center field is a more difficult position to field. Yeah,
offensively speaking, now, like as you see, he's not on this list.
Yeah,
I see Mookie Betts. I see Stephen Kwan, who's a rookie. I see Trent Grisham, who kind of struggled offensively, but there he is defensively. Ian Happ. I thought I would never see Ian Happ on the defensive metrics.
Miles Straw, Jose Siri, Michael A. Taylor.
So all those 3 guys you just mentioned, they're pretty damn fast. All right. And not that Mike Trout isn't fast, but let's face it, Mike Trout's a heavier set guy. He's built like a linebacker.
Yeah.
Like a real linebacker, not Jason Dominguez type of linebacker, like who I always compared him to London Fletcher, who was also kind of small in his day as a linebacker. But Mike Trout's built like a middle linebacker. Yeah. And eventually you're seeing it now. We're seeing a little bit of a deterioration of Mike Trout, especially with his back. Could the Angels do better by putting him in left field or maybe even right field and preserve his body a little bit and put in some young buck there? Probably. But guess what? The Angels don't have anyone like that in their farm system. And the one that they did, Brandon Marsh, he got traded away, and he sucks offensively anyway. So
I thought the reason why the Phillies traded for him was for a defensive standpoint, not necessarily an offensive standpoint. And I really think, and I thought the same thing when they traded him away. I'm like, why are you trading Brandon Marsh away? He's a defensive asset. You can move Trout to left, but they, of course, what do I know?
They're not going. Listen, man, I've been on that train forever. They're not going to move Mike Trout anywhere. Mike Trout's probably not wanting to move anywhere.
Yeah.
because that's part of his brand, and I hate to do that, like put him in that same boat as a guy who has to protect his brand. But let's face it, Mike Trout found his success as a center fielder, not as a right fielder or corner outfielder, I should say. He's a
Yeah.
center fielder. He's up there with Willie Mays and uh who's another famous center fielder who's really good. I can't think of
Griffey.
oh yeah, Ken Griffey Jr., all those guys. So he that's who he's battling. You put him in left field, right field, and suddenly it doesn't look as impressive. So, but yeah, there's another year where we don't see Mike Trout on top of this defensive metrics leaderboard, but guys we see in the top 5. And for those who are on YouTube or watching live on Facebook, you can see the list for yourself. If you're on your phone, just tilt your phone to the side, sideways, I should say. But Nolan Arenado got some stiff competition from Ke'Bryan Hayes at third base. Ultimately, Arenado squeaks by and beats out Ke'Bryan Hayes for the top spot on this leaderboard, let alone third base. You mentioned Miles Straw, Jose Siri, I should say. I know Vince was mad that why is it that the Astros are able to get rid of the scrub players and the Yankees can't do the same? Well, Jose Siri is an elite center fielder, defensively speaking. Michael Taylor once again shows up. If I could spell his name right, it would be even better. Was it Mekahel Taylor? No, it's Michael Taylor. We make mistakes, but that's why we have delete buttons. Jonathan Scope, who kind of showed up out of nowhere, especially for outs above average.
Boy, what a comeback.
I wouldn't call it much of a comeback. I mean, I think offensively he still sucks, but defensively
he still sucks, but defensively he was not good last year, and this year he's much better. So
I don't even know what team was he with the Tigers this year.
He was with the Tigers this year. Yeah, he played first base mostly, I think.
And well, he qualifies at second base here. Brendan Rodgers stayed healthy enough to qualify here in the top 10. Christian Walker just blowing the lights out of these defensive metrics at first base. As you know, Austin, it's very difficult for a first baseman to move up these leaderboards because that's the most penalized defensive position in baseball, according to these metrics. And then finishing out the top 10 are 3 guys tied for 10th place is Mookie Betts, Jose Trevino, and Stephen Kwan. And I highlighted these guys by position. So center field would be Miles Straw, Scope at second base, Swanson, Walker, right, and then Mookie Betts at right field. Catchers Jose Trevino and Stephen Kwan in left. Aside from that, anybody outside the top 10 that kind of surprised you?
Not really. These guys, besides Ian Happ, I think Ian Happ is really the only one that I was kind of surprised that is up here. But other than that, I watching these guys, it doesn't surprise me that they're up here. These guys are all pretty elite fielders. The only thing I have to say is it's pretty funny, pretty ironic that the year before you have the Yankees have Gary Sanchez, who's one of the worst fielding catchers that I've ever seen in recent time anyway. And then then they get rid of Gary Sanchez, and in the next season they have the best fielding catcher in Jose Trevino.
Yeah, and that's a great move on their part. Vince, you'll see him on Baseball Life. He'll mention all the little the details and deficiencies of the Yankees, and that was one of them. You have to improve your third base output, and you have to improve your catching defensively, and because Gary Sanchez's offense is not enough to offset his bad defense. And sure enough, Trevino was pretty darn good offensively, at least adequate enough, and catching defensively, the metrics will show that that's where he comes up big in this list. Let's move over to the outfield, the range. Oh, got to make this bigger. The outfield range and arms aspect of things. So let's start with the range. Dalton Varsho, and again, minimum 750 innings. So for overall metrics, it's split into left field, right field, center field, right? You see that? Mm-hmm. There is no outfield alone. It's split into 3, the outfielders. And that's why Dalton Varsho doesn't show up on this list, on the first list, but he shows up when I only look at outfielders, because outfield is just outfield. Doesn't matter where you played. It's outfield, left field, center field, right field combined. And that's where Dalton Varsho gets penalized on a list like this, is because he was scattered all over the place. And he played some catcher too, that he doesn't show up in the first list. But according to the metrics that measure range for both defensive run save and the ultimate zone rating, Dalton Varsho was the best outfielder in terms of range last year, getting all 20 points that were available in my system here, followed by, surprise, Ian Happ. And again, Ian Happ played both left field, center field, I believe, if I remember correctly. and he must have played it an almost an equal amount because he did not qualify in the other list, but he qualifies here because it's outfield as a whole. He's second. Michael Taylor, Michael Taylor, Mookie Betts, and Stephen Kwan. So same guys from the previous list are in third. And then Jose Siri, once again, that's why the Rays wanted him. And then the last guy with 10 points on this list was Trent Grisham, who also appeared on the first list as well. Some surprise names are who didn't appear before. Brandon Marsh, we just talked about him. Andrew Benintendi, Max Kepler. Christian Yelich shows up at the end, even though he's been having struggles. He looks like his body's also kind of taking a dip. But defensively, he's still kind of strong in left field, I believe, is where he plays. And Victor Robles, don't forget about Victor Robles. He still is athletic enough to be very rangy in the outfield. Over to the arm. So think about these defensive metrics, Austin, like batting average, right? Because batting average is also not trustworthy. Yeah, some guys can hit over 300, but what most people have seen, smarter people than I have, is that it fluctuates from year to year. It's not a very predictive statistic, and it's not very consistent either because it does fluctuate. Same thing with these defensive metrics. And I mentioned that because we talked about it with Melvin last week, where he had Aristides Aquino in right field as his best defense to complete his outfield on his list, and you'll get to see it in just a bit.
Yeah, I thought that was a strange pick.
Well, a lot of it has to do. Aquino has a strong arm.
He has a very strong arm,
and that's part of it. And if Aquino would have played, how many innings? I say 750 innings, because Aquino was well below that threshold. He would have shown up somewhere on the top of this list on his arm alone.
Right.
And now it goes back. Is that now maybe is that a thing because Aquino is not doesn't have, there's not enough video on him, or there's not enough of a scouting analysis on him where they feel like they can have liberties, because he does have a reputation of kind of being lead-footed, I guess. But is it just as simple as the base runners didn't know that he had a strong arm, and then maybe next year it'll go down, or is that or maybe his arm is that good? What do you think there?
I agree. He has a very good arm. Are you talking about why he doesn't show, why he's not playing as much? Or are you talking about why?
No. Why his defensive metrics would be so high, despite the fact that he doesn't have that reputation of being a really good fielder, but it's mostly out of his arm. Like, remember, it's split into two. There's the range factor, and then there's the arm factor. Aquino's high metrics on defense are because of his arm factor.
Right.
So it's like,
I think it is affected pretty much because of these teams scout everything. They scout arms, they scout every player. So I'm sure they're very aware of Aquino's strong arm. So if Aquino's out there in right field, you better be bad fast. And if you're not bad fast, then you ain't running. So I'm sure his reputation of having a strong arm takes it into consideration, and which is why you're not, on top of him not playing very much, it probably affects his defensive metrics as well.
No, it does, because he doesn't qualify. I have to drop. He only plays 607 innings in the outfield, but in those 607 innings, he racked up these metrics. It doesn't show on my list, but here, let me just show it to you on the Fangraphs list, right? That's the arm, but let's just do ultimate zone rating just for giggles, right? I just saw him. Okay, that's not a good example. It might have been DRS then, because I remember. Look, number 1. You see that?
And DRS. Yeah,
number 1.
It's. You could see that his arm and his ultimate zone rating are very high.
Yeah. So he would have ranked high in my list too, but he doesn't qualify. But look, it's a pretty high. Even the range is pretty damn good. So again, reputation based. But my thing was, I guess what I was trying to ask, what do you think these metrics, especially the arm metrics, are gonna drop for a guy like Aquino next year, now that people know that you're not supposed to run on him?
Right. If they're paying attention, then yes. And I think a lot of people are going to pay attention. And it's kind of funny to see that Aquino's numbers are still this high, even though he's been in the league for a few years now, because we saw very early on that he had a very strong arm. So you would think that it would have dipped already. So maybe there's something that we're not seeing, and they're trying to take advantage of it, and they haven't been able to yet. So we'll see. I definitely think though we'll see a drop in his defensive metrics, because if it's this high in 600 innings, then they're not going to want to run on him.
Yeah, then that's my thing. So so yeah, that's how you should picture these stats. It's kind of like batting average. It should fluctuate. And the really good fielders, the fluctuation shouldn't be too high. But a guy like Aquino, I don't know, man. It's a tough sell because he's never done it before. I'm trying to look to see what he has done before on the other screen here. There it is, advanced field. I mean, he's always had a pretty. Oh no, he's never played enough to warrant the high metrics. This is the first year where he finally
because he
got
strikes out too
he
much.
strikes out too much, but he hits a lot of home runs too when he actually goes there. So
Yeah.
it remains to be seen if Aristides Aquino can be an all-around good player, or at least a powerful, like an Adam Duvall type of player. Anyway, other guys who got more than 10 points on the arm, Adolis Garcia, which is speaking of guys who strike out too much, there it is. Maybe Aquino could be the next Adolis Garcia. Dalton Varsho shows up again. Joey Gallo, another guy who strikes out too much also, but he has a powerful arm and people are still messing with it. Jurickson Profar, who saw a renaissance in San Diego this year. And anybody who I'm highlighting right up to Jonathan Daza, from Victor Robles to Jonathan Daza, anybody that kind of sticks out to you that you were kind of surprised to see here?
I'm surprised that Aaron Hicks is on here because I didn't think he qualified as much. And there were so many boneheaded fielding plays this year from him, not only hitting, but fielding. I'm surprised that he's on here.
Well, that's just the arm though. That's just the arm.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Hicks.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Hicks always has had a very strong arm. And my surprise is even at his advanced age and how fragile he can be, he still displays it. So
yeah.
So kudos to him for surviving, I guess. But yeah, I was surprised to see him too. I thought his arm would fall off. So this year I decided to just add, total range plus total arm and to see what kind of number I get. And sure enough, Dalton Varsho was number 1, Miles Straw number 2, Michael A. Taylor number 3, Mookie Betts, Ian Happ, Adolis Garcia, Stephen Kwan, Joey Gallo, Jose Siri, and 3 other players tied for 10th place are at the top of this list. So remember that when it's time to pick our players, that these are the guys that showed up as having good range and good arms combined. Let's go over to the infield.
Somebody else to take into consideration here that's just outside that top 10 and 14th, and that's basically because of his arm, Aaron Judge.
Yeah. Oh, Aaron Judge definitely has a strong arm. Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely not for his range, although I think he's a very good, for as big as he is, he's a very good fielding right fielder. I mean, he's big, so you're not going to have as much of a range because he's got to lug all of that around, but he's got a very powerful arm and it makes up for it. I've watched Judge throw enough. I wouldn't run on Aaron Judge.
So yeah, maybe his arm metrics would be higher if he didn't have that reputation already. But you see 2 Yankees there, Aaron Judge and Aaron Hicks, right next to each other. So let's move over to infield range. And as you can see, I already sorted it by the range metric that is used by DRS and the range metric that is used by UZR. So I was able to calculate it. And there's a list. Arenado finishes as the best fielder in terms of range. So, and as the best fielding range third baseman. Brendan Rodgers is in second, and he gets the second base spot. Christian Walker is 5th overall on this list, but he takes over the first base spot, and barely making it to the list here in the top in 11th place is Jeremy Pena, so he takes over the shortstop spot. But regardless of position, other guys at the top of this list, guys like Brian Hayes, Ramon Urias, who deserves some kudos, Josh Donaldson, we just talked about him. The Yankees needed to improve the third base both offensively and maintain a good defensive guy there, so Donaldson stepped up. He finished in tie for 6th with Jose Ramirez. And I don't know, Gleyber Torres, another Yankee. So, I mean, a lot of the stuff that the Yankees did this year, improvement, you're seeing it. We're seeing a lot of Yankee players on this list for defense alone, which last year it would have been the opposite.
The thing to consider here, Gleyber Torres moved to second base. Originally, he played third. And short. I'm sorry. He played shortstop and did not do well at shortstop. He's naturally a way better second baseman. So it's good that they moved him out of there. The other one, and a key thing that you don't see here, you see Jeremy Pena on here, but no Carlos Correa, right? So in my opinion, I don't think the Astros miss Correa very much.
No, they they've moved on from him. I mean, they always had a backup plan for Correa. That's why they let him walk, because they knew they had a Jeremy Pena waiting for that opportunity. And
and it's so funny because I didn't know who Jeremy Pena was before this season, and I kept going, why did they offer him such a low contract? This guy was a staple in your offense. He was a staple on your team. How are you not offering him such a bigger contract? And now we know why. Because
the other problem with Correa was he had that back problem that was kind of hindering him.
That's also true.
So yeah,
and
but
it proved to be costly a little bit on the Twins too. I believe he missed some time on the Twins because of a back issue.
And he wasn't like a uber elite athlete, uber elite prospect, Jeremy Pena. I see that he was ranked in the top 30, but I never remember him being like this can't miss prospect. He was just a number one on the Astros prospect list. But remember, this is an Astros prospect list that was depleted because of all the punishment that was going through with the trash can scandal. So obviously you don't see a catcher on this list, so I had to create my own catching. And there he is, Jose Trevino. Like, this doesn't do justice as to how dominant Jose Trevino was this year. Jose Trevino like kind of lapped the competition. It's really Jose Trevino and then everybody else.
You know who you don't see on here that you saw all over the place last year? Jacob Stallings.
That's right. Yeah, injuries, not enough playing time. Again, fluctuation, right?
Yep.
Yeah. DRS, I guess this would be a good time to mention what DRS does. So they've improved the way that they measure how these catchers frame, and Trevino was clearly the best framer. I'm looking at it now, and I dropped it down to 500 innings, and Trevino's just lapping everybody on the framing of the strike zone. It's something called catcher ERA. So I'm not sure that's a new one that I'm not too confident in describing, but I know what catcher ERA is, but they use, I guess, run save for catcher ERA. I'm not sure what that R stands for on the DRS side of things, but basically that is a metric that tries to quantify all those intangibles that you hear from managers and scouts, like, oh yeah, this guy when he's on, the pitchers are more comfortable, he can call a good play. I think that's what RCERA, which I think it has to be catcher ERA, is trying to measure there. Stolen base, again, this is on the other screen, so you're not seeing it, but the stolen base, Real Muto finished as somebody who prevents stolen bases. Nobody better run on Real Muto is basically what it's saying. Good fielding plays, Austin Hedges gets that, but Hedges doesn't appear on this spreadsheet. But yeah, again, ultimately DRS says Trevino, and it's a lot closer than I remembered, but yeah, Trevino 21 DRS versus Adley Rutschman, who's at 18.
Austin Hedges is tied for 6th.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So, but if you can see it, you see it in front of you. But yeah, Trevino, Rutschman, Cal Raleigh, JT Realmuto, who despite his reputation as being an offensive player, still is among one of the best overall players, pound for pound, even at a position as punishing as catcher. Realmuto still in the top 5. And Christian Vasquez, who the Houston Astros decided, yeah, we'll take you. We'll take another one of you, despite the fact that they already have Martin Maldonado. And if you're curious, Martin Maldonado, for catchers who play minimum 500 innings, finished tied for 16th on this list in DRS.
Again, I think that has to go for his reputation as a defensive catcher. Same reason why you don't see Yadier Molina up here. Nobody runs on Yadier Molina, right? So I think it's the same thing. Maldonado. We all know that Martin Maldonado is a defensive asset. But I also want to give some credit to Adley Rutschman. The top 2 people here, the top 2 catchers on this list are 2 first year full-time catchers. Mm-hmm. And Adley Rutschman was a rookie. So, it's I got to give some kudos to Adley Rutschman here. It was very, very close for me to trying to decide whether I wanted Jose Trevino or Adley Rutschman as my all MLB catcher for the podcast picks.
So when I dropped it down to 500 innings, Yadier Molina shows up number 7, actually tied for 6th in DRS. But the minimum that I had used here was 700 innings. So he misses out. Also missing the cut is Alejandro Kirk. I know you like him a lot. And
offensively,
he missed no, that's just for catchers. He missed the cut.
Yeah, right.
Oh, you like him offensively, but not defensively?
I like him offensively, yeah.
Well, you should like him defensively too. He's him and Molina are tied with the same DRS at 9 this past season. So So don't sleep on Kirk's defense. The problem is the Blue Jays have like 20 catchers that can play on any major league team. So so that leads us to the big thing that we want here is who did the podcast pick for defensive catchers and for defensive players. So here it is, in all its glory. Felipe goes with Jose Trevino, Christian Walker, Brendan Rodgers, Jeremy Pena, Nolan Arenado, Dalton Varsho, Miles Straw, Mookie Betts. And Austin pretty much had the same players, except that he went with Jonathan Scope at second base, Dansby Swanson at shortstop, Ramon Urias at third base, which is kind of surprising. Stephen Kwan in the outfield, and Max Kepler, who did not even show up on any of those lists, unless he showed up in outfield. Oh, there he is, right there at the bottom. Mostly for his range. So let's see. Any other names that stick out for you on anybody like Sean, Vince, Henry, Melvin? We talked about his list last week. But anybody out of the ordinary from these other lists?
I don't see anybody out of the ordinary that I was like, wow, I can't believe that these guys are on there. I mean, Melvin has Aristides Aquino, which he's the only one I believe to have picked Aristides Aquino, but I'm sure Melvin is very aware of his arm as a lot of us are. And then you know what's funny is you and Sean both picked Dalton Varsho, and you, Sean, have both said how much you like Dalton Varsho. I like Dalton Varsho as well, but I maybe going back, maybe I would have picked Varsho instead of Kepler, but when I was picking these, I knew that in third base's case, you were going to see Nolan Arenado and you were going to see Brian Hayes. Those were the two you were going to see. I also wanted to give a shout out to Ramon Urias because he was right there with them, very close to being there. So I think he should have deserved the spotlight. In reality, Nolan Arenado, Brian Hayes probably both edge him out a little bit, but I wanted to give some spotlight to Ramon Urias. So I don't see very many surprising things on here, and it's no surprise here that I think all of us picked Christian Walker to first base. I think that was our only unanimous choice was Christian Walker at first base. So all the rest of us, we've got it looks like most of them are 2 or 3. We almost had a unanimous Dansby Swanson, and but you decided to go with Jeremy Pena.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the numbers. I couldn't deny him. So, really quick. So I'll post these once we're done with this podcast. I can individually post these on a different post for everybody to see. I'm also waiting on Vince and Henry to give us our base runners. But there was something I wanted to mention, and it just slipped away. Well, if it was important, I would have remembered it right away. But yeah, this is what the podcast, the other people with podcasts that are connected to Baseball Life, that's who they pick. Oh, the Orioles, right? So Ramon Urias, you saw a lot of Jorge Mateo, you saw a lot of Adley Rutschman. Another reason why there was a renaissance with the Orioles this year was because they had some really good defensive players on this team as well. Despite the fact that they have mediocre pitchers, really good bullpen, but. And you still have Ryan Mountcastle, who strikes out a lot and has a lead glove at wherever he plays.
I knew you were gonna poke at Mountcastle.
Well, here are the Gold Glove winners. It's pretty much a similar list. Vladimir Guerrero is a big surprise in the American League, but I saw the list from last year, and Guerrero's not too bad. And even Vince, and privately, we were talking. I cannot believe that Vladimir Guerrero won that fat piece of he's a Blue Jays. Blue Jays player. Vince is a Yankee fan, so of course he's gonna hold that against him. He's gonna fat-shame Vladimir Guerrero. But I told him, who's the real winner? Who's the best first baseman in the American League? And I looked at the metrics, and it's Vladimir Guerrero, Vince. Well, screw this list then. I'm done. Look, Vince, you can pick whoever you want. It's not league related. It's Major League Baseball. You can use anybody in Major League Baseball. Then give me Christian Walker. Like just like the guy from Spider-Man. What's his name? J. Jonah Jameson. But Guerrero's metrics justify him getting the American League Gold Glove. Andres Jimenez, I don't have a problem with. Brendan Rodgers in the National League at second base. Shortstop Jeremy Pena and Dansby Swanson. We just talked about that. Your pick Ramon Urias. He got the American League award. Nolan Arenado dominated the National League at third base. Left field went to Stephen Kwan, and the National League they gave it to Ian Happ, which. Again, I guess we could be happy with those results, although I'm kind of questioning that there has to be a better left fielder in the National League. But we saw the list. whatever. I mean, he shows up on the list at the very bottom of all the other spreadsheets. So Miles Straw and Trent Grisham at center field. Right field, Kyle Tucker, who nobody picked.
Yeah, that one's a surprise to me. That one I don't know. I didn't see Kyle Tucker in anywhere close to the top of any defensive metrics. I was looking at these Gold Glove winners and I'm like, you know what? They're getting better. A Gold Glove is not as much of a popularity contest anymore. They're actually looking at, the metrics and awarding it to the actual best fielders. And then you got Kyle Tucker. It's like, where the hell was Kyle Tucker in any of this? I don't understand. That's the only one that makes zero sense to me. I have no clue, no idea.
If we are to go with outs above average, which is a stat that we haven't utilized, Max Kepler is number 1, and Dalton Varsho is number 2. Mookie Betts. Oh, Kyle Tucker's number 5, but I guess the other names are not sexy enough. I mean,
on Baseball Savant.
Yeah, this is the outs above average.
Yeah.
Minimum 500 innings. I guess he could have given it to just right field only. Max Kepler would have been a better choice according to the metrics, but Kyle Tucker does finish number 1 in the American League in right field. But you saw the list; we didn't see him show up at all on the spreadsheets. What about DRS? Maybe DRS something.
I don't think I've seen him on DRS either.
Well, I'm on it right now on the other screen. Oh, Kyle Tucker's number 1 in the American League.
Oh, all right,
so
then.
There you go. That shows what we know, right?
Good job, Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, I just overall it doesn't make any sense to us because of what we've seen. I mean, where was he? How come he doesn't show up? Because I only did the top
weird.
10.
You feel like one of us, one out of the 6 or 7 of us would have seen it, but
I'm doing it right now. See where he would have shown up. So I did 750 innings, right? And Kyle Tucker is 18th, actually tied for 17th in DRS overall. Regardless of fielders. So yeah, he's outside the top 10. So all right, we'll give it to them. Good job, baseball writers. Mookie Betts is a National League. That one's a slam dunk.
That one's a given.
Pitchers, we don't do pitchers here because I think the pitchers are the most the worst athletes on the diamond. But Shane Bieber and Max Fried, I couldn't tell you if they were any good. I mean, well, let's find out. Do they even qualify?
They were the best at PFPs, I guess, this year. I don't know what to tell you. I don't understand Gold Gloves for pitchers. I don't get it.
Every time I see a pitcher, they don't hit and they just cede to the infielders. So I'm looking at it right now. So DRS is the only metric that measures pitching defensive metrics. Tyler Anderson finished number 1 among qualified pitchers. Corbin Burns number 2, Max Fried number 3. Okay, and Shane Bieber tied for 3rd. So there you go. The 3rd best pitchers won the award. So they're using the metrics, man. They're not getting lazy. And the utility spot, that's the new one, which I don't know how to feel about that, but Brendan Donovan and DJ LeMahieu won it for both their respective leagues. I would have, if I had a vote, I would have given it to Jorge Mateo or someone like that.
I would have given it to Mateo, I think, too.
And then maybe Dalton Varsho, because you got to say something about.
And Varsho. I keep forgetting that Varsho plays catcher too.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about utility. I'm trying to see if anybody on the infield spots. No, but if it's utility, it should be infield and outfield. I don't know why Dalton Varsho couldn't be given the award, honestly.
Yeah, that was, and you know what? Just a sidebar. That was my difficulty with what qualifies as a utility player, and it's the specific case of, does Shohei Ohtani qualify as a utility player because he hits and pitches? And ultimately, I was like, he plays DH. He doesn't normally play an out and a position out on the field. So in my mind, before DH, pitchers did that too. They pitched and then they went up there and they hit. So I didn't. It's tough because I think in my best hitters in my utility spot. Oh, but we changed the definition of utility player. But in this case, in terms of Gold Glove winners, I mean, I don't know. It's tough. The definition of utility player is a little vague right now.
Yeah, and I would have preferred just giving it to the next guy who shows up in the list, like guys like. I mean, if we go back to outfield, there you are. Miles Straw, I would have given him something. Although Miles Straw is primarily a center fielder, so maybe give it to somebody like Ian Happ, who plays left field and center field. Who's another good example? Jurickson Profar. I mean, he ranks really high for his arm, and he could play anywhere. Although primarily now he's an outfielder, but if you want to be that vague with utility player. I mean, Jurickson Profar definitely qualifies as one.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the next debate is what qualifies as a utility player, because if you play left and center field, that's more than one position.
Yep.
Is that a utility player? In my mind, a utility player is somebody who plays infield and outfield.
Like Amed Rosario. Amed Rosario.
Like Amed Rosario, or I would qualify. I would say Dalton Varsho is a utility player because he catches and plays the outfield.
Yep.
That's a utility player. So I don't know. I feel like playing two outfield positions, you're just an outfielder. You're not a utility player.
Because if
Chris
that's the case,
Taylor is the epitome of utility players because he plays infield and outfield. Kike Hernandez plays infield and outfield. So I don't know. I think that'll probably be the next debate here in the next couple of years.
And let's face it, these guys get penalized for playing multiple positions because that means that they don't show up on the leaderboards as a whole for what they can do as a whole for playing multiple positions.
You know what? I'm all for having a award for utility players because there is a growing number of utility players, and being a utility player is hard because you got to know all the different aspects of each position, and each position is uniquely different and how to play it defensively. So, and it's very difficult to transition from one defensive position to another, not only defensively, but there's no consistency. And then you have to go and hit, you know what I mean? So, and in my mind, and I say this as a former utility player, I played, second and short and third, and then I played the outfield, and I also caught at the, when I started playing college, I was a catcher and an outfielder. So, I know what it's like to transition from different positions, and it's difficult to have that inconsistency and then have to go up there and hit. You know what I mean? So I mad respect to utility players, but I think we need to define what a utility player is.
I mean, it started with Ben Zobrist, man. He made that position sexy, the super utility player, and now we see the evolution of it, where now they're handing out awards for utility players, and we're still kind of. I mean, I think Donovan played all over the place, so that's fine. DJ LeMahieu, second base and first base, I guess, third base sometimes. But yeah, we have to. I would have given it to Jorge Mateo. I would have found room for Jorge Mateo to get his kudos.
And then that's the other thing is because now that I'm thinking about it, I've also considered somebody like Max Muncy as a utility player, but he only plays the infield. He just plays multiple infield positions.
Yeah.
But if you go out in the outfield, I don't necessarily consider a left field center fielder a utility player. So I think there has to be a clear definition on what a utility player is.
And I wish that Fangraphs could kind of incorporate these leaderboards wholly as opposed to positionally. I wish, because Javier Baez also can play multiple positions, and he's really amazing no matter where you put him. Like, say what you will about him, about his offense and how his showboating style, but I mean, he can showboat because he's that damn good, but he rarely shows up anywhere on these leaderboards because he plays too many positions. And that used to penalize him in Chicago, but the leaderboard doesn't show up because they only do it by position. If you're not playing enough games at shortstop and second base, you're not going to show up on these lists. So I don't know. So maybe if we were to dig the numbers, maybe these guys, when you combine all their metrics, it does post a sexy number. But I just wish it was an easier way to keep track of these guys. Anyway, we got to move on. Best base runners. And as you can see, that's a big ass spreadsheet. So I'll try not to dilly-dally too much here, but basically there's a stolen base. You see the minimum requirements: 450 plate appearances, a minimum 10 stolen bases. Jorge Mateo wins that. He was a stolen base leader this year, apparently. There's the rest of the guys: Cedric Mullins, Tommy Edman. You're gonna see a lot of what do you call them? Baltimore Oriole players on this list. I did batting average, but again, with the caveat that you need to steal at least 10 stolen bases. And guys like Freddie Freeman, Aaron Judge show up on the list. Like, what? They're not base runners. Yeah, well, they stole more than 10 stolen bases this year.
Freddie Freeman is an excellent base runner. You'll
see.
I love watching him run the base. He's a very smart base runner.
Same thing with runs scored. Usually runs, number of runs scored. Usually that there's a correlation with high on base guys, and high on base guys is usually these power hitting guys and guys who walk a lot. Well, the caveat is you got to steal at least 10 stolen bases. Again, Aaron Judge, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Jose Altuve, Trey Turner. It's a who's who, right? Yeah. It's a who's who. Kyle Schwarber makes the list because they decided that once Rob Thompson, we noticed that once Rob Thompson took over, it seemed like he was giving everybody the green light to just steal bases, which explains why JT Realmuto
he won the
was able-
tacos for the World Series. Kyle Schwarber.
Schwarber did, yeah, and then
The Schwarber taco.
and Real and Real Muto, I think he stole 20 bases this year too. So from people thought, oh yeah, he's not gonna steal these bases. Yeah, a career high this past season, 21 stolen bases, and he was always a very good a base stealer for a catcher.
Yeah,
so
Real Muto is another one. He's good. He's the fastest catcher, and he's a good base runner.
So then we got the 3x5 heroes. So if you play fantasy, you play Roto, it's the stolen bases, where you ranked in stolen base, where you ranked in batting average, and where you ranked in runs, right? And the output is Aaron Judge, Freddie Freeman. Those guys aren't base stealers. You can say, well, hey, they stole more than 10 stolen bases, and they were productive on a batting average, which again, batting average usually the advantage goes to the slappy hitters who are also fast because they are fast. They can get those infield hits. But those guys stole 10 stolen bases. Aaron Judge, Freddie Freeman, Trey Turner, Jose Altuve, Jorge Mateo sneaks in because of his stolen base prowess. He didn't do much of anything else, though. But there's Mookie Betts, there's Marcus Semien, there's Cedric Mullins, Tommy Edman, Randy Arozarena to do the top 10. Stolen base net is stolen base minus caught stealing, right? Tommy Edman. I know that's a guy you like. Sean absolutely loves him, and he's not just not only does he rack up the stolen bases, but he's very efficient with his stolen bases as well. He doesn't get caught too much. And I forgot what the number was for him, but he finishes number one in this category. There's Jorge Mateo. Again, you're going to see his name a lot. Trey Turner, Cedric Mullins, Bobby Witt Jr. making his appearance here. And Kyle Tucker, we just talked about him. So yeah, I'm going as fast as I can because I know we spend a lot of time on defensive. So I'm trying to get to all these spreadsheets as quickly as possible. Home runs. Minimum 450 plate appearances, 10 stolen bases. Aaron Judge, number one. How do you feel about that? Home run. Aaron Judge constantly showing up at the top of these base running metrics, so to speak, Austin.
I mean, when you produce like he did this year, everything's gonna click for you. So he's got the power, and he's got the power. Sorry,
I was just thinking that too. I was about to say.
So, I mean, it's not a surprise to me that he's up here because he produced so much for the Yankees. And then there was a period of like a month and a half where he just put them on his back and just produced all the offense for them. So, it doesn't surprise me.
Quick question. How many stolen bases did Aaron Judge get this year?
16.
Yep. 16.
I was right. Oh my God.
16.
Okay.
Yeah. Career high.
Stolen base net for Tommy Edman is 29.
Thank you for that. Thank you. So yeah, that's pretty damn high. So where are we? Home runs. So yeah, Kyle Schwarber got more than 10 stolen bases. Mookie Betts. I mean, we know who Mookie Betts is. Shohei Ohtani once again proving that he's not a one-trick pony, and Kyle Tucker round out the top 5. Power and speed. So that's basically how many home runs plus stolen bases that you get, and it's based on the rankings. So Aaron Judge, Jorge Mateo at the top of the leaderboard, Kyle Schwarber, Kyle Tucker, Cedric Mullins, Mookie Betts, Tommy Edman. Again, it's who's who, right? Julio Rodriguez is one that shows up finally. That's different. He rounds out the top 10. Julio Rodriguez had an excellent season. Also the triples, because I know when you think triples, those are extra base hits, but let's face it, usually the fast guys get all the triples, and there he is. Rosario, he's a fast guy, right?
Yep.
Jorge Mateo, Stephen Kwan, Gavin Lux showing up here with the triples. He tied for second along with those other guys. And Brandon Nimmo, what he lacks in home run power, he makes up for it in triples. And then everybody else, it's a list of 10 people because triples are a rarity. So they all get bunched up together like that. Maybe I should have just done the top 5 instead of top 10, but here we are. I have a speed demons metric. So that's where did you rank in runs, stolen bases, and triples, right? So I sort that. Jorge Mateo, well at number 1. Austin, do you see anybody that's kind of surprising you on this speed demons list?
I think the only reason why Cedric Mullins is kind of surprising at number 10 is because he kind of took a step back offensively this year. So I think just for the simple fact that I didn't think he produced as much offensively is why I'm surprised he's on here.
Oh, believe me, it was frustrating. As a Cedric Mullins owner, I won the championship thanks to him. but it was very frustrating because you were expecting the same production like last year.
Yeah.
And you're right, he did take a step back, but he still sold 34 bases and hit 16 home runs, which you would take that on any given year, but he did 30-30 last year.
Yeah. But one thing that's interesting to me, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, most of these guys, their home ballpark are big. They're big ballparks.
Well, Jorge Mateo, I don't know, he plays in Baltimore.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I think that's just because Mateo's fast. But Bobby Witt Jr., Kauffman Stadium is huge. You have Marcus Simeon, where Texas is big. Cleveland is big. Aaron Judge, I think, the power and the stolen bases, I think, get him up there. Not necessarily the triples, but the power and the stolen bases do. Trey Turner, Dodger Stadium, another bigger park, pitcher type park.
Trey Turner did not finish in the top 10 though in triples though, just to point that out.
So that's probably, it's power and
stolen bases.
So I'm just kind of noticing a little trend there, and I think it has to do with the triples. You're only hitting a triple if you have enough room. So
yeah, that's true. And there's ultimate base running, which is an advanced metric. So basically that tries to do the same thing that the other defensive metrics do, the defensive run saved and the ultimate zone rating, is how effective were you as a base runner, and did your exploits on the base pads lead to more run production?
Almost a completely different list.
Yeah, Elvis Andrus shows up, which we saw with the White Sox. He almost was a spark plug that they needed to make the playoffs. It didn't work, but he was there. Marcus Simeon shows up. Xander Bogaerts, Ronald Acuna finally showing up on. Oh yeah, he was already stolen bases, but Ronald Acuna showing up again there. Sorry about that. Adley Rutschman making his debut on this list. Nicky Lopez, one of Sean's favorite guys. Who else? Tommy Pham and Dylan Carlson. Weighted stolen bases. Basically, are your stolen bases leading to runs? Is the dumbest way I can explain it. Tommy Edman, yeah, his stolen bases lead to runs scored, so good for him. Yeah. Trey Turner shows up again. There's JT Realmuto. Yeah, there's a reason why they were letting him run, because it leads to runs.
Yep.
Miles Straw, I know we like him a lot. Jorge Mateo once again showing up on this list. Kyle Tucker, Josh Rojas, that's Sean's favorite guy. Nico Horner, when he was healthy, was a very effective base stealer. And Jose Altuve runs out the top 10. And I forgot to mention Bobby Witt Jr. It's a who's who. And then
most of these guys in the weighted stolen bases, high-powered offenses.
Oh yeah, that'll do it. Well, yeah, if you stole bases, you're damn better have someone behind you driving you in, so it better lead to something.
Got Tommy Edman, who the solid Cardinals offense. You had Trey Turner. I mean, we know the Dodgers lineup is loaded. It's a lot. JT Realmuto, high powered Phillies offense. Miles Straw, the Guardians had a very good offense this year. Most of these guys. Kyle Tucker is 6. Jose Altuve. I want to highlight Jose Altuve for a second. They said at the beginning of the year that he wasn't going to be stealing any bases, and yet he stole, I think, like 20 or 15 stolen bases this year. So, I don't know. I just thought that was funny. He's kind of, even though he's had some injuries to his legs over the years, it seems like he had an increase in base running production this year.
Yeah, especially compared to the last couple of seasons. But yeah, this year, 18 stolen bases.
Yeah.
To couple that with 28 home runs, which again is an improvement to what he did in 2019, 2020, and 2021, where he combined to steal 13 stolen bases, albeit the 2020 season was shortened, but that 2020 season, he only stole 2 stolen bases in 48 games. So, So yeah, he was on pace to not steal more than 10, but he came back to his roots. Makes me wonder what he's doing to get back to those roots, but I digress. He's already gone through enough in his the last couple of seasons. So then you add UBR versus plus WSB, the weighted stolen bases plus the ultimate base running. Tommy Edman sweeps that metric as well. So we heard a lot about Tommy Edman. We heard a lot about Jorge Mateo. Who do you think is going to be the best base runner this year?
It's got to be Mateo.
Well, I gave it away because I highlighted his number, but yeah, Mateo by a long.
I wasn't even paying attention to the number, so
he beats out Tommy Edman by 8 points. I've never done this before, where I combine all the little separate things here, all the color coordinated columns, as you see there, the orange, yellow, green. There's a reason why I color things. But Mateo, when you combine all these metrics, Mateo wins out Tommy Edman in second, Trey Turner in third. Cedric Mullins was fourth, Bobby Witt Jr. in fifth. So that leads us to where did the podcast pick these guys? And of course, I'm still waiting on Vince and Henry. Hopefully they'll get me their answers soon. I know Vince is on vacation and Henry is always busy on the weekends. So I'll be patient with those guys. But I went with Jay. Go ahead.
I said he's a busy man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Good afternoon to Angel, who's watching from Utah. How you doing? JT Realmuto, number one. I was my catcher. Freddie Freeman at first. Tommy Edman at second. Jorge Mateo is my shortstop. Bobby Witt Jr. is at third base. Randy Arozarena in the outfield, along with Cedric Mullins, Aaron Judge. But he's not a base stealer. He doesn't do anything on the base paths. Hey, home runs for stolen bases. We want that power speed combination, right? And then Trey Turner to finish out the utility spot. Sean went with Dalton Varsho. I don't think he showed up on the other list.
He didn't show up on any lists.
Probably because he didn't play enough games. Maybe. That's my 450 was my cutoff. I couldn't go any lower than that. Freddie Freeman. So we matched there. We matched on Tommy Edman. We matched Bobby Witt Jr. by the different positions. But Josh Rojas, Sean has this weird affinity to his.
Sean loves that dude. I swear.
You know who else he loves? Stephen Kwan and Miles Straw. He makes his outfield. So that's where him and I differ. And then Ronald Acuna is his outfielder, his third outfielder. And Jorge Mateo is his utility player. Go ahead and you could do both Austin and Melvin.
So I went for my all base running team. I did catcher at JT Realmuto, first base Freddie Freeman, second base Tommy Edman. So pretty much par for the course there. I have Trey Turner at shortstop, matches your utility player. I couldn't leave Trey Turner off this list. Third base, I decided to go with Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez didn't show up on a lot of top tens, but when you look at just the strict base running and stuff, he's a good base runner for third base. So I gave it to Jose Ramirez. My outfield picks, I picked Stephen Kwan and Miles Straw as well, and then Ronald Acuna Jr. So mine matches Sean, and then I have Jorge Mateo as my utility all base runner there. And then Melvin from Baseball Cosmos, he went with JT Realmuto at catcher, Freddie Freeman and Tommy Edman. So Felipe, myself, and Melvin all have the same first three there. And then at shortstop, it starts to get different. He decided to go with Elvis Andrus. So good pick there because he was on some of our lists. He also had Bobby Witt Jr. at third, same as Felipe. And then he decided to go with Stephen Kwan along with Sean and I. And then he picks Trent Grisham as his outfielder, and then Ronald Acuna Jr. as well. And then he picks Jorge Mateo as his utility player.
I'm making up the list for Vince here. I know he's going to go with these guys anyway. Josh Donaldson. He's basically going to pick all the Yankee players. So I'm joking. All right.
Henry will do that.
Oh yeah, Henry will do that. It's not a homer pick. No, I'm joking. He was so it's not a homer pick. I swear. Like, okay, it's Jose Trevino. We know he's a good player on defense. Calm down. It's okay.
Yeah, all the way down. It was Jose Trevino, and then you see Henry at the end. Jose Trevino, not a homer pick. Like, bro, we all picked Jose Trevino. So
let's see. You know what? That's the one thing I forgot to do. I wanted to read some of his comments when he was doing this list. So let me see.
My favorite one was when he picked Brian Hayes, and then he said, "Fuck Nolan Arenado."
Of course. Let's see. Gold Glove. Okay, not a homer pick. Jonathan Scope. Talk about a bounce back. Yeah. Although I don't remember what he did defensively, Jonathan Scope, but yeah, he definitely showed that he was still mattering. And for defensive metric, he put Aaron Judge, the real MVP. So for base running, he didn't do anything for base running yet. So
as an Angel fan, I'd say he's an MVP. I'd say Aaron Judge is is the MVP.
There you go. Let's go. All right. Well, speaking of MVP, this is the main event of this whole thing. The best hitters as we try to wrap up in the next half hour. So
let's do it.
Let's do this. There it is in all its glory. The top hitters in all of baseball. Aaron Judge, on the 4 statistical categories I use, sweeps both the rate stats and the counting stats. Albeit these are advanced metrics, still he sweeps both the counting and the rate stats, getting all 40 available points. In second place was Paul Goldschmidt, Jordan Alvarez in third, Freddie Freeman in fourth, Jose Altuve in fifth, Mike Trout in sixth, Manny Machado in seventh, Austin Riley in eighth, Nolan Arenado in ninth, Juan Soto in 10th. And where's Shohei Ohtani in all this? 16th. And he only got the cumulative version of WRC plus, just plain old WRC. He got 1 point for his efforts there. Yandy Diaz is another shocker there as well. And you would agree that Julio Rodriguez is kind of a shocker that he got so much hype and didn't really place in the top 10 on a lot of these metrics.
But he's also a rookie, and there's a lot of hitters that
no excuses.
A lot of really good hitters. So kudos to him for even showing up on a list.
No excuses. No, he strikes out. He needs to cut back in the strikeouts for sure. But he did. Like you said, just a rookie, still shows up in the top 16. So good for him. So not a lot of surprises here, right, Austin?
No, not really. It's pretty much the who's who of offense. The only one, Juan Soto, kind of dipped off when he went to San Diego, but I think his weighted runs created there kind of saved him, and I think it's because he gets on base so much, he walks so much. So other than that, I'm not really surprised. It's the who's who of offense on here.
Hey man, you know what? Him being in Washington didn't do him any favors either. So
that's also true.
Do you notice anything that's missing here, Austin?
There's no shortstops. It's a lot of corner infielders and outfielders.
Yeah, those power hitting traditional. Even Yandy Diaz shows up here, which really surprised me. But Sean will tell you, "Hey, I knew that Yandy Diaz was always good. You guys are always hating on me, like loving Yandy Diaz." Okay, Sean.
I mean, I had Yandy Diaz on a couple of my fantasy teams. So
yeah, it's the weirdest thing. Every time I get Yandy Diaz, he sucks, but he still shows up on these damn lists. But let's look for a shortstop. Let's go on to the next spreadsheet. Let's make this one a little bit bigger for the class. All the way big. Yeah. Again, same metrics. WOBA, WRC plus, offensive runs above replacement, which is the WAR metric that they utilize. Somehow this number is connected to this number right here, the WOBA. And I forgot what the calculation was, but I'm going to go with it. Screw it. Because this is WOBA is a rate stat, and this is a cumulative stat. So, and WRC has to do with WRC plus, but this is a rate stat. WRC without the plus is a cumulative stat. And it was a close race for the top. In distant six was Dansby Swanson. In fifth was Carlos Correa. So we make fun of the fact that the Astros were more than happy to get rid of Carlos Correa, but when he was healthy, Correa did produce at the position. So good for him. Francisco Lindor in fourth. Bo Bichette in fifth, and third, I should say, despite the fact that this was kind of a down year for him, and he still produced at the position. Trey Turner, my number one pick overall, although he didn't show up. My number one pick overall that I was more than happy to take in the in the podcast league. He finishes in second, and guess number one, another Felipe pick, Xander Bogaerts. So in that same podcast league, I got both Trey Turner as my number one pick, and then Xander Bogaerts was also in the first 5 rounds, and because of that, he wins the best hitting shortstop in 2022. Any problem with that, Austin?
Nope. This is again the who's who of offensive shortstops.
So let's count that. So Bogaerts, Trey Turner, those two were on the podcast league. Aaron Judge was on my team in the podcast league. Anybody else? No.
I had Jose Altuve.
Oh, okay. And no, that's it. I had other players.
I had Freddie Freeman too.
Okay. Well, no wonder you won into final. But turns out winning all the way to the last minute to get a pitcher was the right strategy all along.
I guess so.
Yeah. All right. Let's go on to the catchers, because we also don't have any catchers. What's the minimum here? 400 plate appearances, right? And 6 was Sean Murphy, who had a bounce back year. Now that's a real bounce, but not this Jonathan Scope crap. Sean Murphy mattering again. And now he's swirled in trade talks. Even the White Sox are interested, which kind of has me concerned. But last year, Sean Murphy hit 17 home runs. This year, he hit 18 home runs, but he cut back on his strikeouts and increased his on-base percentage and all his other rate stats. So good for him. Alejandro Kirk, your guy, finishes in 5th. Adley Rutschman, the Orioles savior, finishes in 4th. Will Smith, Sean's favorite guy, and not the pitching Will Smith or the guy who slaps for his wife's defense. No, it's the catcher from the LA Dodgers, finishing in 3rd. Wilson Contreras.
Will Smith still slapped?
He doesn't play base, man. He doesn't. Oh, slaps the ball. Yeah, good. That's a good one. I like that. I thought you were talking about bass.
That was good.
Wilson Contreras, which I drafted him as my first. It's a 2-catcher league in the Baseball Life League. I drafted him as my number 1 catcher, and Aaron gave me so much crap. But the numbers don't lie. When he was healthy, all he did was produce. Despite maybe that he might strike out too much, but you know what? I'll take the home runs and everything else that comes with a Wilson Contreras. He finishes in second, but again, no brainer. JT Realmuto finishes in first. Anybody that you are shocked to see, or that maybe you're wondering that is missing on this top 6 list here?
I think maybe it's because I didn't pay attention to the A's enough this year because, well, they're the A's. But Sean Murphy, good to see Sean Murphy on there. I had believed in him a couple of years ago, and he didn't do well for me. So, it's nice to see Sean Murphy on here. But other than that, not really surprised. Alejandro Kirk had a great offensive year this year. Adley Rutschman had a great breakout rookie season this year. Makes me wonder why the Orioles waited this long to bring him up there. And then the other
service time,
I guess. And the first and the top 3 there, I mean, those are the best hitting catchers, and we knew that those were the best hitting catchers going in. I would have thought it would have been maybe Smith up top going into the season, but other than that, doesn't surprise me.
And finally, I think we're down to our last couple of spreadsheets. So the podcast picks. I'm still waiting on Melvin's MVP, and I'm still waiting on Vince and Henry to show up to create their list altogether. But here it is. I went with JT Realmuto as my shortstop. Oops, I did too much here. Go back. Realmuto is my catcher. Sorry, Realmuto is my catcher. Paul Goldschmidt is my National League MVP and my starting first baseman. Jose Altuve is my starting second baseman. Xander Bogaerts at short. Manny Machado at third. Jordan Alvarez in the outfield, along with Mike Trout and Aaron Judge, your AL MVP. And Freddie Freeman is my utility player. And that's Freddie, not Freddit.
Freddit Freeman.
Yeah, you could tell I was rushing at the end. Sean, again, he loves Will Smith, so that's his catcher. Numbers be damned, damn it. And of course, he's never going to admit that JT Realmuto is the best catcher because, I put it this way to him all the time. Maybe if JT Realmuto was the starting catcher for the Mets, maybe it would be the Mets in the World Series and not the Phillies. No, but I just can't justify $100 million. I just can't justify $100 million for an aging catcher like that. Well, this aging catcher got 21 stolen bases. Well, Buck doesn't run. Does Buck Showalter run? How did the Mets do in stolen bases? That's not well.
I don't think they did well.
No, let's find out. But
they
anyway,
kept getting hit. They do really well in hit by pitches, but I don't think they do well in stolen bases.
Well, you know what, Austin, we here at the podcast, all we do is fact check everything. So with that being said, we'll delay the awards for just a bit and see where exactly the Mets rank in stolen bases. By the way, the Rangers and the Marlins were number 1 and number 2 in stolen bases this past year. You know what they have in common there, Austin?
They both suck.
Yeah, they both suck ass. Mets finished 23rd overall in stolen bases.
Yep,
the Guardians, huh?
I said, yep, didn't do well. Told you.
But it's stolen bases. I mean, again, usually the good teams don't need to rely on stolen bases. You just mentioned the Rangers and Marlins; they suck. Cleveland is in 3rd in stolen bases, but that strategy worked out for them, right? So,
yeah, their team was built for it.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Jose Ramirez, who's their best slugger, also steals a lot of bases for sure. Mm-hmm. Hit by pitch, right?
Mets.
It was the Mets. Okay. Not the Astros, but I thought the Astros they wanted revenge and stuff. It's the Mets by a landslide.
Yeah, the Mets were getting hit. I believe, if I remember correctly, they actually broke the major league record in team hit by pitches this year.
Wow. Well, now I'm curious, who has led the league in hit by pitches since 2020?
I'm pretty sure.
Since 2020?
Oh, since 2020. Well, the Mets have been getting hit by pitches a lot lately, so I wouldn't be surprised. Although I wouldn't be surprised if it was somebody like Jose Altuve too.
No, well, I'm just doing by team, but I could do individual. Okay. The Mets, last year, it swelled up their numbers, beating out the Reds and the Cubs and the Brewers and the Cardinals. Oh, interesting. Reds, Cubs, Brewers, Cardinals, all National League Central teams.
National League Central.
Yeah, so there's must be some.
And I'm sure it's because they're hitting each other.
No, that's what I mean. There must be some rivalry thing going. I know the Pirates and Reds seem to always clear benches. Not so much now that what's his face? Amir Garrett is no longer with the team. Astros 21st. Hold on now. Astros 21st since 2020 hit by pitches. Tied in 21st. The Philadelphia Phillies. All right, but you're gonna say, okay, well, that does 2022. That was the Mets year to get hit by pitch. They're cocky, Buck Showalter is Buck Showalter. All right, so who since 2020, right? Trash cans. The teams are pissed off. They want revenge. Who was the number one team getting hit by pitch? And since 2020, from 2020 to 2021, can you guess?
It's got to be the Mets.
Mets are number 2.
Oh,
number 1 and number 3 are the Cubs and Reds, probably because they're just hitting each other.
They're just hitting each other.
Where's Houston in all of this? Houston is 22nd.
Yeah, I was going to say they're below 20th, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. Well, 2020, that was the year, right? That was the year that everybody hated the Astros. Let's just look at the 2020. Who led the league in hit by pitches? Because everybody was going for the Astros. They were hunting them down. Can you guess what the number 1 team in hit by pitches is in 2020?
Cubs.
Yep. Number 2.
I want to roll today.
Number 2. Can you guess who number 2 is?
Reds.
No, the Mets.
Oh, damn.
Reds number 7 though. So the Astros, a team that doesn't strike out a lot, posts high contact rates, very solid team. 24th in hit by 23rd, actually tied with the Braves. Actually,
I bet there's 2 reasons why the Astros are not as high as you thought they were going to be. One, I remember when all of that came down and people were saying, I'm going to hit them. This is ridiculous. They're just going to get hit in the head. The league came down and said that if you throw on purpose, we're going to have higher penalties and stuff. So that kind of discouraged pitchers from doing that. And at the same time, I think there's a sense of, instead of hitting them, I think they turned into, you want to beat on trash cans and you think you're the greatest team. Watch me strike you out. Right. So I think that's not
going to happen with the Astros. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. But you know what I mean? I think there was more of they wanted to get them out rather than hit them. So I think they pitched more in the strike zone trying to get them out rather than trying to hit them.
So I know we're off a tangent here, but last thing I'm going to say about this. So the Astros tied for 23rd and hit by pitch, right, in 2020. Right, tied for 23rd with them, the Atlanta Braves, who faced off in the 2021 World Series.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's an
Astros and the Braves. Yeah,
it's an interesting parallel there.
Yeah, so maybe that's the secret. You got to be in the top, outside the top 20 in hit by pitches, and that increases.
Don't get hit.
Don't get hit. And that's the other thing with the Astros is that maybe the fear in 2020 was, well, it's a fast team with Altuve and this and that and the other. Well, Astros did not rank 20th in stolen bases among 30 teams.
Interesting.
So yeah, things are not always what they seem. And you said you want to see if an individual player got hit more than others in 2020, because I know Altuve was the big.
Altuve was the big one, I think. Altuve and Bregman.
All right, let's find out, because it was Wilson Contreras, number 1 in 2020.
Cub.
Yeah, another Cub. And Contreras is a lightning rod of things. He's a very emotional player. Ramon Laureano, I don't know if this is before or after the 80-game suspension. Keston Hiura, who all he does is strike out. So yeah. Anthony Rizzo. Oh, Anthony Rizzo's always going to lead the league in hit by pitches, and he's not even a Houston Astros player.
That's because he crowds the plate.
Exactly. He doesn't give a damn. Abraham Toro actually led the Astros on this leaderboard, unless I'm reading this wrong, in 2020, and 13th overall. So Abraham Toro and George Springer with 5 hit by pitches. He's in the top 30 as well. So see, that proves it. They were headhunting the Astros. They were headhunting the Cubs players. So, well, all right. Well, okay. Well, 2021, they were just, getting ready because of Manfred's stupid thing about protecting these Houston Astros players. 2021, I think that's the year, right? No, Mark Canha also. Well, there's a reason why the Mets are up at the top now. Canha's with the Oakland Athletics, but Canha also led the league in hit by pitches in was among the league leaders in hit by pitches in 2020. He's number 1 in 2021. Oh. Anthony Rizzo is number 2, and I just went black here, so I can't see the rest of the screen. Oh, there it is. Wilson Contreras, top 5. Jose Abreu, also top 5. So it's a Chicago thing, is what it is, Austin.
Yeah. your spreadsheet just completely went black. It's gone now.
Okay. Yeah, I see that now. Did you hear me talk about?
Yeah, I did hear you. I did hear you talk about that. I was distracted about the it went black, and
it did go black on my end. Sorry about
yeah.
that.
So and I'm sure it has to do with those guys crowd the plate. If you crowd the plate, you're gonna get hit. It is what it is. And I'm sure they crowd the plate for a reason. And I was kind of a player where I didn't care if I got hit. If I got hit, thanks, stupid. That's a free base.
My base percentages went up. Yep.
So, I was good with that. I didn't care. And I'm sure Anthony Rizzo and Mark Cannon, all those guys, they crowd the plate. They get hit. They get hit. It is
Wilson
what it is.
Contreras. Wilson Contreras wears that. I think he wears the Venezuela. Oh, no. I'm thinking about his long sleeves. It's usually a Venezuela flag on his long sleeves. But yeah, they're well protected. Wilson Contreras, Anthony Rizzo, Mark Cannon in the top three. Mark Cannon number 1, Rizzo number 2, Contreras number 3. Ty France also shows up a lot. So I'm now looking at the list from 2020 all the way to 2022, and it's the same list. Andres Jimenez, also a former Met player. He must have learned something while he was in the Mets organization. Jose Abreu, Jonathan India. There's Josh Harrison, Starling Marte, Kyle Farmer. So I don't see any Astros players on this list. So
yeah,
they're not stupid. That's not a stupid team. They don't mess around like that. Yeah. Anyway, where were we?
We were at Sean because we went to Jose Altuve.
Oh yeah, Jose Altuve, Francisco Lindor. Of course, he's a Mets player.
Yeah.
Oh, well, he is top 4, I guess. Yeah. So, all right, good for him. Yandy Diaz, of course. Sean, we just talked about it, right? There he is, 14th overall.
Yeah, well, at least he put somebody on the rankings there.
Yordan Alvarez, Mike Trout, Aaron Judge. This is basically my fantasy team on the points league right there.
Yep.
And of course, he cannot, because it's Sean, he cannot bring himself to give the MVP to Aaron Judge. So, yeah, he's been justifying that pick all year long, so I'm not surprised. And even when Aaron Judge was leading the league midway through the season, he was kind of poo-pooing the idea that Aaron Judge is the league leader. Go ahead and mention your team right there.
So my team, I have Alejandro Kirk as my catcher. JT Realmuto, I think is a really good pick, but I had to go to Alejandro Kirk for 2022. He had a great year this year. I have Paul Goldschmidt as my first baseman, Jose Altuve as my second baseman, Trey Turner is my shortstop, Jose Ramirez, one of the most underrated players in the MLB. I have him as my third baseman. I've got outfield, same as Felipe and Sean. I've got Yordan Alvarez, Mike Trout, and Aaron Judge. Mike Trout, even, he missed 40 games, still ended up being the best hitting center fielder. So I had to put Mike Trout on there. And then my utility player, at first I misunderstood what our utility player was. Our utility player ended up being just any other hitter. So I decided to go with Shohei Ohtani. I originally had Luis Arias there.
No, you had Jeff McNeil.
Oh, Jeff McNeil. That's right. I had Jeff McNeil there. I had Luis Arias, changed it to Jeff McNeil. I wanted to give a spotlight to Jeff McNeil, but once I realized what the actual utility hitter was, what our definition was, I decided to give it Shohei Ohtani. And then I have Paul Goldschmidt and Aaron Judge as my NL and AL MVP respectively.
And Melvin had Realmuto, Paul Goldschmidt, Jose Altuve. So him and I are matching. Once again, a catcher, first base, second base, and then he went with Carlos Correa. Right. He's still finished. We saw
shortstops different all the way across the board. Yeah, 4 different shortstops.
And that's how deep that position is. And guess what? 3 out of those 4 guys at shortstop, they're free agents this year.
Yep. The free agent class is going to be deep.
Oh, yeah. Jose Ramirez, you and him are matching. Obviously, I think it's a clean sweep for this. Yep, clean sweep. Yep. Everybody is going with Alvarez, Trout, and Judge. And I think he misunderstood as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if he actually is okay with Luis Arias.
I'd be okay with Luis Arias too.
The batting champion, right? I'm still waiting to hear from Melvin's MVP.
I was just looking at all-time, I believe it was all-time batting average for a certain position. I believe it was first baseman, second baseman, something like that, all time, because I was doing the GOAT and stuff like that. Luis Arias is 6th all time in batting average in one position. I think it's like second base or something like that. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Luis Arias was up there. I was like, wow, it's average or on base or something. I was shocked that Luis Arias was up there.
Sean claims that if anybody is ever going to hit 400 again in this baseball wacky world of ours, it's going to be Luis Arias.
Yeah, he said that there was some predictor that Luis Arias had the best chance in since then to hit 400. It wouldn't surprise me.
And then, of course, the last on the list, the writers, the Baseball Writers of America, American League and National League Silver Slugger winners. It's pretty much. I mean, there's Jeff McNeil at second base.
Yeah,
I don't.
doesn't surprise me.
I don't think I would have gone. Well, I don't know. Every time I say I wouldn't have gone with Jeff McNeil in National League, but maybe I would have. I don't know anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't see any other second baseman here besides Jose Altuve.
And
Nope.
most now there isn't very many second basemen.
Unless Mookie Betts counts. But
he might count next year.
Yeah, but yeah, right. I forgot they nominate these guys and then they vote, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, Trey Turner, Nolan Arenado, Kyle Schwarber, Mookie Betts, Juan Soto, Josh Bell, which is really surprising. I would just do what I did here and just do the extra hitter as opposed to DH, but
Yeah.
I digress. And then Brandon Drury was given the new utility player over at the American League. Kirk, Nate Lowe, which we did not see Nate Lowe on any of these lists.
Shocking to me.
In a league that has Vladimir Guerrero and you would think first base would be deep, but I guess it wasn't.
Who were the nominees?
I forget. I don't really care about that. This is the first time I'm seeing the winners, by the way. I don't pay attention because I'm too busy with my own little world here. Xander Bogaerts, that's well deserved. So they got the shortstops right. Jose Ramirez and the American League, so that's good. Mike Trout, Julio Rodriguez, Aaron Judge, Jordan Alvarez and the DH, and Luis Arias as your utilities player. So there it is. All the awards, including ours and the baseball writers. Next up, we will embark, not this week because we're out of time, but next up, we still have to talk about the pitchers, right?
Yeah.
But that means starting pitchers, relief pitchers. It's my favorite time of year, but it's a lot of work, Austin. You know what I mean?
Yep, for sure.
And we also got to do rookies as well, hoping to get that tackled in one podcast as opposed to several podcasts. And when I go hard, man, I go really hard. I do best starting pitchers, rookie starting pitchers, best rookie relief pitchers, best what do you call it, best rookie hitters. So yeah, we have a lot more work to do. We're on the halfway point, but we got the three components out of the way. Looking forward to talking about some pitchers and rookies next time we get together. Any final words, any final thoughts on this whole awards thing?
Not really. I think most of those awards went to the right people. I like that it's not turning into a popularity contest anymore. We're going to be giving away more awards. And we're also going to be awarding the greatest of all time. So we've already done first and second base. If you haven't done that already in the Baseball Life group, go ahead and give me your top 10 list in order. It's amazing how many people don't follow directions. Top 10 lists in order, please. First base and second base we've done already. We're going to move along the infield and do shortstop as well.
Awesome. So check out that list. And all right, well, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I am Felipe. That's Austin. We'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.
Deuces.